the moment that I accepted that I'm not all good was the moment I felt more free. Alrighty, hi guys. Today I wanted to talk about why people who experience abuse tend to feel a lot of shame. This is something that I've been working through as well, and I have my opinions, and I just wanted to share those opinions. First, I want to say that I'm sorry for whatever it is that you have been through. I'm going to speak on sexual abuse just because that is the topic for me that I have experienced and have been working through. And I realized that nothing is ever fully like a one-stop road because I've been playing around with my inner child and just like getting her to tell me about why she feels certain ways, because whenever we act out or we're triggered or we have uncontrollable emotions, it stems from our inner child. So I've just been connecting with her and really just figuring out what it is that's been blocking us in terms of believing in ourselves wholeheartedly and going after our dreams and whatever. And it was shame. And I really didn't understand shame until like really sitting with my inner child to unpack all of that. And I'm going to share my story. So trigger warning, it is a little uncomfy to talk about, but I think it is necessary to talk about because a lot of people get uncomfortable in these conversations, so no one ever really has these conversations. When I was younger, I was molested at a very young age. So like my first couple memories were of things that weren't the best pleasant memories to remember. And with that came a lot of shame. And I think that like as victims of abuse, we after the abuse is finished, we tend to put that trauma onto ourselves and onto others. And we tend to feel like shit, like we're not deserving of a happy life, we're not deserving of a happy partner, we're just not deserving of anything happy. So we begin to punish ourselves for the remainder of the years that we live or don't live, because some people just can't really wrap their head around what has happened to them, so they've no longer decided to be here. So I get it. I definitely do. I think there is this voice that develops in your head that just kind of tells you that, you know what, like you're not worthy of living. Your life is not as important as anyone else's. And I want to say that that voice is simply a liar. It's just the trauma, and nobody really wants to talk about it because a lot of people do experience it, but it's still a very uncomfortable conversation because it's like, because we do certain things afterwards after being abused to that we're not proud of, that we think that maybe why should I talk about this when I'm just as bad? Because these are some of the thoughts that I would have, you know. So I don't know if anybody else relates, but why would I talk about this when I've done things too, or I've hurt people too? And hurt people do hurt people, and I definitely do see the empathy in that. And I think it's kind of funny how we like tend to condemn each other when really every single person who has experienced abuse does put out some form of abuse afterwards, whether that's verbally, whether that's physically, emotionally. There's just different types of abuse, but abuse is abuse. And honestly, like when I think about people who abuse people, it is just their wounded inner child. And I'm not saying that that makes it okay. It's just perspective, and it's been hard for me to really separate myself from that, because it's just like I've done things that I'm not proud of too, you know, and I really had to sit with myself and really truly accept that, because there's no going back. You cannot change the past. You can't choose to change the future. And as humans, we try to separate each other or say you're bad, you're bad, you're bad. But every time we do that to another human being, it's because we have not forgiven ourselves for the things that come after abuse. How we abuse ourselves, how we abuse other people, whether that's verbally, mentally, physically, whatever. Abuse is still abuse, and we feel that shame because we've also allowed that trauma to make our hearts dark, whether that was for a previous second or a longer time. Some people stay in that energy. But I was watching this movie called The Butterfly Effect, which I did not finish because oftentimes whenever like children are being, I get triggered because that's what happened to me, and I feel like I'm still working through all of those things, but I still wanted to talk on this. And one of the kids out of like the group of kids that it happened to, he became very abusive and the other people didn't. But like they all experienced the same thing, but a different effect came out of, for each kid was affected in different ways. Maybe one turned their abuse internal and one turned it external. But either way, they were all kids who got exposed to something too young. And I really want to talk about this because even I remember being in middle school and, like kids were starting to do stuff and there was so much shame. At that young age, after experiencing what I experienced, I did not know that like that was too young to experience that. So it's like kids, when you see kids behaving in that way, it's because they were exposed to it at a young age, but nobody wants to talk about that. They just want to shame the individual child, and I think that's also where that shame comes from. I hope I'm making sense, but I definitely think that when we carry around that punishment voice, that we're not worthy, we deserve to be punished, we can never really accomplish anything because there's this voice that tells us that we're not worthy of anything because of the abuse that we've been through. And I know so many people that have been through the same kind of abuse as me, and it is very common, and I don't really see people talking on it because it's a little uncomfy. The only way to really work through these issues is to simply talk about them and know that you are not disgusting, you are not worthy of the internal punishment that you give yourself. Speaking nicely to yourself, learning to love your body again will allow you to really shed that shame. And I'm still working through it too. So I'm not here to tell you guys that it's just like an end all be all type thing. But it is a daily requirement to get up and make sure that you know that you are loved. And that is your job to do now. And I'm sorry that you were not protected in that way. I definitely went through my stages of anger, grief, betrayal, all the different emotions came up, and it all led back down to me feeling all that energy back, because it's like I know that it also happened to that person that did it to me. So it just feels like to blame them is to continue the cycle. I don't know if that makes sense, but and where I'm from, I'm Jamaican, so it's very common for that to happen to little girls and little boys. So yeah, it's just been so normalized, and a lot of people don't talk about it, so it's just like left unsaid. But that shame that you carry, you have to accept the person that you became after your abuse and the person that you are today. Okay, for me, I really was such an angry person. I was an angry person. I said hateful things, and now that I know the power of my words, there was a lot of shame and guilt that did come up, and I'm very sorry to the people that experienced that side of me. That side of me, I know, was also hurting. She was yearning for my attention. She was yearning to be seen, held, loved in the way that she was. So this is not to shame that version of myself, but it is just simply to say that I've done things that I'm not proud of. I've been a person that I was not proud to be. And it is okay, because everybody goes through that cycle, but nobody really wants to talk about it. Nobody really wants to talk about it because it's uncomfortable, and everybody wants to be seen as this good person, but there's no such thing as good and bad people. We are just people trying to figure our shit out. And after you experience trauma, you don't really get to dictate how you respond to it. I'm sure we wouldn't have picked the trauma that we went through to be able to learn these lessons, but something does come out of it, and honoring what comes out of it and letting go of the shame that comes with it is really how you can truly begin to be free. Because the moment that I accepted that I'm not all good was the moment I felt more free. And it is okay to not be all good, because no one on this planet is. And if anyone convinces you of that, they're lying, because nobody's perfect, and we're all learning. We're all evolving, constantly evolving. So I wrote like a journal entry yesterday, and I wanted to share that journal entry with you guys about forgiving myself. So I wrote, I'm so sorry for the shame I put on you over the last 22 years. Today I stumbled upon a YouTube video that talked about accepting my shadow and meeting it with compassion. So before I even like continue that part, we have to, our shadow is a deep dive into our psyche as to what it is that traumatized us and how we truly feel about it. So instead of reacting in a way of like, why would you think that? Why would you say that? You're not a good person. Really just sit with your shadow and meet it with compassion, non-judgment. Because when you judge yourself, then your inner child doesn't feel safe enough to speak to you about certain things. And the whole point of this is to feel safe with yourself, okay? And I promise you, everybody has dark thoughts. Like, I have dark thoughts, and I'll be like, damn, like, that was scary. But, like, if I don't lean into it as to where it's coming from, I won't be able to heal that part of me and turn it into something great. I said, hi, Shadow. I understand that you've let shame, feeling weird, disgusting, unlovable, abandoned, judged, scared, alone, fearful, depressed, etc. In one lifetime, that's what you felt. I am so sorry for always punishing you or judging you for when you try and tell me something. Please know that I forgive you. I forgive myself for our past. We've done some things we are not proud of, and I admit I have done a bad thing or two. This doesn't mean I am less lovable or worthy of poor treatment or deserving to live a life where I am destined to be alone. I know I am worthy of love. This handwriting, my handwriting gets really like shaky once I'm like crying and writing, so I'm trying to like read it. I know I am worthy of love, good things, being heard, walking in my purpose, and loving myself without terms and conditions. So this part was very big for me with loving myself without terms and conditions. So I'd find myself like punishing myself if I did something that I didn't really desire, which would be acting out of my shadow. Like, say for example, someone says something to me, and instead of reacting calmly, I'd react into like this angry way and try to hurt that person back, and then I'd feel guilty for it because I'm like, why would you say that? It's like, I don't want to be the type of person that reacts because someone says something or gets out of character because someone says something. So because I didn't really accept that part of my shadow, it would be like I would beat myself up for it afterwards. And that was never good. Like, when I love myself, regardless of what I get done in a day, regardless of what I consider an accomplishment, regardless of what I consider good or bad, is when I show up for myself in the best ways. And learning to love myself again without terms and conditions is the best. It is really the best, and I highly recommend it. And I know that takes time to work through, but like, guys, our love should not be conditional for ourselves. And I realized that anybody who has ever made their love conditional for me, that's how they treat themselves. And that's why this is such a hard topic to talk about, because it always goes back down to how people treat themselves is how they treat you, right? And it's sad because it's just like, I can't even be like, yes, I do feel mad. I'm not gonna say that, but it's like there's this resistance within me to be mad, because it's just like I see how we are all connected and how we are all one. And this is not to excuse all abuse in the world. This is just to say, if you've done something and you are willing to change, then that is the first step, and you are worthy of that change. I think as humans, we think that we have the power to condemn another, when really that is on God. That is God's choice. That is the universe choice to do. But for some reason, we felt like it's in our own power to do so. But that's because we are carrying also that shame. So we put it onto another person because it's just like we feel like we should be punished for it. So we want to punish another person for their own crimes, per se. I finally understand what it means to forgive yourself. I know that everyone makes mistakes, and the reason we are so quick to condemn another is because of the shame we have ourselves. we are so quick to judge and shame another because we have things we have not forgiven ourselves for, and we carry that that load. Oh my god, this handwriting is terrible. Must have been like when my voice got shaky. And we carry that load and put it on to another human being. The truth is, our bullshit is our shit to carry. It is not for another person to carry for us. When we easily forgive ourselves, we don't judge and condemn others. So that is very important, because like the most forgiving people, they do not treat themselves like, well, I only love you if you do this. They forgive themselves because they know that they're constantly learning as they're growing. And you know what? Like, with spirituality, where I am in my journey, like, I had to really humble myself and take myself down off that like ego pedestal where it's like, you know what, I'm doing better than this person, I'm doing better than this person, you should have known better, you should have known better. But it's like, when I look back on my past self, she was doing the best that she knew with what information she had at the time. She was just as angry, just as full of fear as any other person. And a lot of humans are walking around just full of fear. So it's like, I don't even know what to say. It's yeah. I hope that makes sense. We simply see them for who they are and where they are on their journey, and honor that. So learning to truly forgive has showed me that like there's nothing to genuinely forgive, because it's like everybody's operating at a conscious level of where they are on their journey, right? I hope that makes sense. So it's like they're doing the best they can with what they know, based off of what they were raised up as and the trauma that they experience. And not everybody chooses to unlearn those things, and I get it, because it's hard. Like, let's be honest, it is hard. And not everybody wants to do that. Some people are more comfortable just living in that programming that they grew up with, and it doesn't mean that it's easy to live in, because you've lived in it. And we know, like, for the people who have like actively working on their mental health to come out of that, it is a hard thing to swallow. Some days feel better than others, some days are heavier than others, but I don't think that we should shame another person, even if they did not decide to heal. It's just like leaving them where they're at. I'm not saying to welcome them back into your space, but free your own heart from pushing that hate onto them, because whatever we put out there comes back to us tenfold. Yeah. Bye. Those are my messages. Bye.